Well, welcome back, everybody, to the close. It is amazing to see this many people hang all the way through. We've had pretty consistent attendance, so we do want to thank all of you for staying for the closing session with our subject matter experts and our thought leaders. We've divided this segment into three parts. The first is our thought leaders and SMEs are going to share with you their thoughts on both nuggets and next steps out of these 2 days of discussions. And then we're going to turn the lines, the Q&A over to you all in two ways. One, your additional questions for our speakers and our thought leaders as to your response to what we've covered or not covered. And then we're going to do a little survey, or two surveys actually. One is this very same survey we ran at the end of yesterday, which is you to write what you've seen as the nuggets that have come out of today, and we'll create a word map of that, and we'll share that word map compared to the one from Monday. And then we're going to be asking two confidential questions that we won't be sharing, which is just your general feedback on the quality of the program that we've been conducting. And then we close with some thank yous and then a look at some upcoming activities. If you go to the next. And the next. Oh, you're going to be using the slido.com, by the way, for your questions, if you haven't been already. So if we go to the next. And this is going to be our panel discussion with our thought leaders with input from a number of our subject matter experts. And go to the next. And these are our thought leaders who are with us and have been able to join us throughout the program. If you go to the next. These are our subject matter experts. And the next slide, we'll use that to kick off roundtable, start with our thought leaders, and then have our subject matter experts. What do you think were the golden nuggets that came out of today? And then secondly, what do you think the next steps are here out of what you've heard discussed and asked? And I'll start off with Annabella again.
Hi, everybody. Well, I honestly have to say that today was quite an encouraging session. And I think if we all live out everything that was spoken today, then we're going to be setting up our industry to go in the right direction. For me, some of the nuggets that I'd like to maybe emphasize that resonated with me, and I'll go back to the morning when Michael shared the typical labor productivity curve where we see manufacturing and construction and how they're not keeping up with each other. You know, that for me is really an opportunity on how can our capital project industry start to mimic that of the manufacturing industry a little bit more, you know, and what are some of the things that are happening in manufacturing that maybe we're not deploying within the capital project space. And we can think of automation, standardization, a well-defined network of suppliers and sub-suppliers that, thinking back to Paul McGregor's session yesterday, that repeat supply chain. So the manufacturing industry can really leverage that repeat supply chain button almost. And how do we create that within our capital project space? So that's something that really resonated with me. And I think, and Michael, Bruce, and Allison mentioned this in their OPG case study, which is fantastic. You know, in a collaborative environment where there is that constant communication, we really get a chance to learn from each other. As OEMs, we're not experts in the owner and EPC space and vice versa. And we really have to be able to capitalize on those opportunities to learn and strengthen and build some muscles around this collaborative space. I can think back to my days at the University of Texas and think back to my contracts, ethics, and liability class with Dr. John Borsheding, who mentioned the problems that we face in this industry aren't necessarily because of shortcomings in technology. Everything has to do with communication. So I think these last 2 days really has been an exemplary example on how we must do better in the communication piece, and focus on the project-centric approach. Think beyond just what each individual organization is trying to do, and what are we trying to do to better the project. Something that I think is extremely important, and I think COVID really has forced us to dive into this space of digital communication. Michael also mentioned in his session the power of a digital document control platform to make sure that the information is being shared. And I for one can say in the last year we've deployed certain technology that has allowed the communication to be almost instantaneous. We've deployed things like Microsoft Teams that allows us to reach through into the organization and have access to individuals for that instant communication. So definitely there's a shift in the industry, and I think having this conversation here amongst peers is extremely important, but I think we also need to consider how this is going to come through in the next generation. So I'm encouraged to see that a lot of this is happening under the purview of CII, which has a strong academic tie to make sure that these are habits and muscles that the next generation are going to be able to have as part of second nature. It's not going to be part of a change that needs to be forced. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Moser from Shell.
Yeah, good afternoon again, everyone, or evening, depending where you're at. I unfortunately had to miss about half of the last two sessions. Unfortunately, I will listen to those following the conference right away as soon as it gets published. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I think it's spot on. I think everybody just has to come to a realization that if we work together, we can do better things. That's really what it amounts to. I know it's difficult sometimes, and contracts are difficult, but you know, if you can get that collaboration and agreement, and if the owners and all the rest of the industry can align, I just think there's a lot of power that can be unleashed. So good to see it. I'm looking forward to continuing this, Bob, with CII and the next steps. I'm not sure what they are, but I think it's got to be something.
Good.
And thanks to all the SMEs and presenters and everybody that helped put this together. There's a lot of effort, that's for sure.
Thank you, Jay. Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Well, with the number of excellent presentations today, it's difficult to narrow down to a few nuggets, but I do have a few things I want to point out. First, from the last presentation there on the Christchurch work by Phil and Rod, the one page that was titled Community Positives from Managed Recovery. You know, how a project team working more collaboratively can be more effective in community relations without having to focus energy on adversarial team dynamics and contractual disputes. To me, that's a huge positive to this collaborative approach. For the Otto Holden I2PD presentation on collaboration integration, the results of the project, I really see many nuggets there. Thanks to Bruce and Allison for that presentation. There were a number of references again today to safety. I really appreciate that because that's, you know, foundational to so much of what we're talking about. Going forward, I really see leadership, which was mentioned today, as being key to individuals being able to have the courage to look at what they've been doing, how they've been performing within their companies on projects, and recognize that there's room for improvement, and actually apply the leadership needed to work with their companies, their managers, and others to bring about what we're describing here in this summit in the collaborative and integrated approaches. We did this to an extent with AWP. It's still working. We're still growing that, but we've seen that leadership make a difference. And last, I'll echo Jay's points. Thanks to Lloyd Rankin, Steve Mantelo, and the Group ASI team overall for another excellent collaborative and integrated effort to plan and coordinate and execute this summit. And thanks, Bob, for your facilitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is Eric with us? I think possibly not. I think he had some other conflicts. Well, let's
I'm
turn
here.
to, oh, you are. Good.
Yeah, I'm here.
Your input, Eric.
You know, I thought it was a wonderful afternoon of presentations. I really enjoyed the afternoon presentations, as well as Bruce and Mike's presentation. I thought it was a bit of a clinic, and the case study with Allison and Mike doing that, I thought that was really insightful. And this idea that I got a really clear understanding now of I2PD, the 9 principles, 21 methods, and the whole approach along those lines, in terms of the behaviors, the process, contracting elements to it, and the collaboration and integration index. And when I think of that, I think, wow, if you combine this sort of collaborative contracting with the tool set, the digital project delivery, boy, what a powerful combination, right? So if you can't help but think that the technology aspects of this, and even taking it into kind of the future, into more of the AI, and helping make decisions and tee this up in terms of real-time plan versus actual versus as is, and sharing that with the project team, I think there's some really powerful aspects that technology can bring to the table along these lines, right? To really show where the risk is, and to have that collaborative team spirit that was put in place there in terms of the equitable risk sharing, right? And that whole concept of my brother's keeper, getting to that aspect of it from a sociology perspective on a project is just the holy grail. And kudos to Mike and OPG and Allison and Bruce for making that happen. That's yeoman's work, and I think that's really interesting. And this is where we have to go going forward. I think the combination of this with a heavy technology side of it creates a digital neighborhood, creates a supply chain that is wired in together and functioning collaboratively in order to do the greater good. So I really like where this ended up. And when I think about the combination of I2PD plus AWP plus contract construction verification and smart contracts to create like a digital neighborhood, and to have projects that are well run but also fun to be a part of, projects and portfolios, programs that are people enjoy being a part of and feel like they're growing as part of a digital neighborhood for a particular owner. And that's the other thing, is that the owners really do need to drive this, right? So it doesn't happen without everybody, but particularly it's the owners that need to step up and take some experiment here and start to do the IPD-ish and head that direction. But hey, thank you all for great presentations. Wonderful presentations.
I'm going to ask our SMEs if they have any thoughts along these lines to share, and then we'll go open to questions from our attendees. Richard, you were on board yesterday.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to pipe in. The thing that stands out most for me is the overwhelming instances of use of these methodologies and how they've originated in parallel across the world in different time zones, but dealing with, for the same or very similar purposes and dealing with similar circumstances in at least 4 different countries. So to me, that's very encouraging, and for anybody here who's in attendance, that suggests that there's a movement, and then the people who are involved in this movement that are some of the people that are speaking today are connected, and including through this conversation and through other research efforts, and we're out there together. And so I am very happy with what's happened today in this summit and bringing all these different people together, but around the same topic. And I'm really hoping that we maintain this connection, and then we continue to interact and work together and sort of join together in this path forward.
Great. Michael DeBray?
Thanks, Bob. First of all, I'd too like to thank Lloyd and Steve and Team ASI for facilitating and organizing and technology supporting us all. You made us all look, particularly me, better than we really are. So thank you. I appreciate that. One particular point struck me as I think about the last 2 days, and that's that point of changing behavior, changing culture. All of the presentations, that was a core point and a critical success factor. The innovation is continuing. As we saw, there's new templates coming. There's the guidebooks coming. There's follow-on research. There's the integration of best practices like AWP right into the collaborative, the natural fit there right into the collaborative contracting strategies. And we're going to be involved in our first one beginning Monday that integrates the two. And then the last thing I'd like to do is a call to action to those of you who are on the phone. Phil Barutha and his research team and Bruce as the chair with all the companies together, they're on this 8-year longitudinal study to find and to validate the findings we found in the first phase of the research, and to understand the efficacy of the different methods and principles across the different phases of the project. And we need pilot projects. So if you're looking to go forward to run one of these projects, please reach out to Phil, reach out to Bruce, put your hand up and say, not only would we like to run one of these projects for our business benefits, we'd like to participate in the research. And what I will tell you, you will have access to more hands-on experience in helping you get through your particular project by being part of the research than trying to go it alone. So call to action. We've got one project and one control project with OPG. Thank you, OPG, for putting your hand up early. Now we need the rest of the industry to join in with them. Thanks,
Thank you. Bruce Burwell, your thoughts?
Sure. One thing I didn't mention until, and Jamie, when you mentioned leadership, I had taken out a slide in my presentation, and it was directly related to leadership. Sure, CII had the foresight, to charter us to research, IPD for industrial type projects, and back in 2016 through 2018, OPG's leadership had the foresight to say, yes, we're gonna try this, we're gonna pilot this model, but inside the project itself, you don't need to bring your A team. The team collectively keeps the project center focus. And we have a real cool slide, but for the sake of time, I had pulled it out. Whereas in a traditional model, you need very, very strong PM and surrounded by strong support project support group, to keep that project center focused. But in a collaborative model, the team keeps the project center focused. I was fortunate enough back in my OPG days to surround myself with folks that were actually pioneering this model. Now that I've left OPG and I'm facilitating and coaching these types of exercises, I still have enough brains to surround myself with folks that are going to set the project up for success. Lastly, Lloyd and Stephen, and Robert, thank you. this summit's discussions regarding this summit started about a year ago, and Lloyd and his team has put in a tremendous amount of time and effort. And you know, the last 2 days, in my mind, has been a great success. So that Lloyd's team need to be applauded for this great success. Thank you.
Paul McGregor?
Yeah, hi, I had to come off mute. I'll try and keep it brief because I think I echo a lot of the comments that have already been mentioned. But I think one thing that really struck me by some of today's examples, and maybe you know, resonates with some of my limited experience, is when it works, it really works. Yeah, so you don't, you know, just get a little bit of success. You know, what was the quote? It was 30 or 40% savings against the RFP from OPG. Yeah, you know, that's remarkable. Yeah, so I think that's something you know, once the magic happens, it you know, and it resonates also with what I said about being fun and inspiring ongoing relationships over a period of time. And maybe just to echo the point that indeed, you know, when it happens, it's great, but it's so difficult, it seems, to make it happen. And you know, building a kind of a collective of practitioners who can work with each other, learn from each other, share challenges, and offer best practices helps to build momentum. You know, I shared some examples from Shell, but I can tell you that those are a small number in a large pool of projects and a large amount of spend, and you know, we still have some way to go to make this, I say, a broader doctrine across not only our company but the wider industry. And you know, I think ongoing support through this kind of community that's been established through these kind of discussions will only help. And I look forward to maybe hearing more pilot projects and using those to inspire people nearby me and in my company or the wider industry. So thanks for all the great sharing, and particularly you know, from as far afield as you know, Canada and New Zealand. I mean, it really shows us, you know, what a global connect we have as well. So very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. John Fothering? John, are you able to unmute?
Been sat too long with the mute on. Yeah, I think it was a couple of very interesting days, and I think the interesting thing is that there are common themes running through all the presentations, and I really think that it's about getting the message out there. It really does depend on the investors, owners, to drive the ship, because they have to decide how they want the projects run. I don't believe it can be driven from the supply chain. But at the same time, I think it's for a group like this to promote the benefits of this sort of working, and it's up to us to get the message out there. It's about educating people. And when you think of the numbers and the examples, and you know, all right, small number of examples that have been quoted, but the benefits, it just becomes a no-brainer. I've spent a lifetime career lifetime dealing with claims and disputes, to the point where I don't want to do it anymore because it's so futile. And then when you switch to being involved in something like this, it's re-energizing, and you think, why can't we put half the effort into the projects that's put into disputes? It would make all the difference. It's just nonsense that we try to kill each other in this industry when there's actually a lot of talented, experienced, capable people that if they work together, they can make a great industry. And I think the other thing that we have to remember is we want to attract new generation talent And therefore, as an industry, we've got to be exciting. It's what Paul was talking about yesterday, generating excitement in success. It's up to us to get the message out there. That's all I have to say. Thank you. And thanks to Lloyd and team as well, and everybody else. I thought it was a great event.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, I think just very briefly, Bob, I think a lot of the comments that some of the other SMEs have made, I would concur with. I'm just encouraged by what I've heard over the 2 days in terms of the commonality of some of the challenges that we're facing. But, on the other hand, the momentum that's building towards, looking to collaboration as a way that we can improve project delivery performance and improve our efficiency. So I found it very, very encouraging. I think somebody just said that, of course, for the momentum to continue to build, we need to make, the cultural and behavioural changes that we're starting to see something, that becomes permanent. Because unless we see that permanent change in culture and behaviour, we're likely to drift back to some of the past practices. So I think that's it from me, Bob. A great event, and again, thanks to the ASI team who've done a great job, I think, in organising it.
Well, thank you, Tony. The person who came the furthest for this or stayed up the latest, I can't tell which. Rod, your thoughts on what you've been able to hear in our session? You're on mute still.
How about that?
That's good.
Thank you. I haven't heard all, but I've heard a lot just now that I completely agree with. I feel quite humbled to be part of this because I truly believe, like several of you have said, this is a changing environment. This is a new age gently dawning. And by the way, the dawn's just broken out there, so I'm feeling a bit more lively. 4 points that I jotted down. I am a strong believer in the digitisation of the built environment. I don't know whether many of you are following the British Centre for Digital Built Britain and the Digital Twin Initiative, but that has the potential for end-to-end integration of information about the creation and maintenance of assets and all the processes involved, and that could be a game changer in efficiency. My second thing is I'm absolutely convinced that collaboration works, but it needs focus, of course, at the early stages. And John's point is that must include clients, of course, leadership once it gets underway, and the building of a culture. The third point, though, having said that it must include the clients, I also strongly believe, and particularly when I look at the bigger challenges of society, we, the people from the doing end of town, have a lot to offer because we know how to get stuff done, and that needs to be brought into, in my mind, some of these big challenges like climate change, where otherwise society can stall. And I liked the other point that John made about the new generation, and I'm particularly encouraged by the strength of character and determination of young women that are coming into the sector. And I'm a little bit sad there's only Arabella, is it? I can't.
No,
yes,
Adam.
amongst us. And I mean, that sounds flippant perhaps, but it's a shift away as well from a narrow historic society. So I'm excited and pleased to have been involved. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for putting the effort in to join us. Phil, we'll turn to an academic for the last of the comments, and then we're going to open the Q&A.
that could be dangerous. So I'll keep it as short as possible. This won't be a faculty meeting. But I do want to say thank you to Group ASI and Bob for hosting, and the great leadership from our thought leaders that joined the call today, and definitely Rod for I got him up well before the crack of dawn, and he brought his energy and enthusiasm and passion to the presentation. So thank you Rod for that. And I'm just probably going to repeat everything that everybody said, and But you know, I think my biggest single takeaway between what I heard today and then having the opportunity to observe both the Out of Holden team in Canada as well as the skirt team in New Zealand, just on my observation was, and then Jamie and Paul somewhat alluded to this a little bit in the comments, but really when you can eliminate the noise for these great engineers and builders that we do have in this industry and really let them do what they do well, which is design and build projects, it's really amazing to see what they can do with that singular focus when we just get all the rest of it away and go design and build the projects. I truly was amazed on the skirt project and then the work that the Auto Holden team is doing when we just cut them loose to do their job. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Well,
But
thank you. Did we miss any of the SMEs who at least don't have their cameras on? Okay, well, let's turn to the questions from our attendees. If you could shift us over to that, Stephen, in terms of what questions we have left, or questions that may have been written over the past few minutes in terms of people's response to what they've heard here.
Sure, one moment.
And then we do have 2 quick surveys that we're going to run here. Okay, well, I'm going to read the questions and suggest that you all just turn your mic on. Let me know who would like to field it. Can the I2PD team speak to how the contingency amount was developed between the multi-agreement members and the authorization process using contingency?
Okay, Robert, I'll kick this off, and then Mike can fill in if I've missed any points here. When we went through the risk, developing the risk plan and the risk pool, we had each individual I2PD team organization, GC, owner, OEM, and so on, identify their each individual risks and assign a dollar amount to those risks, okay, in an individual exercise. Okay. We brought it back, we rolled it all up. The amount of contingency to cover those risks was enormous. Okay.
21%. Because
it was 21%, is that what it was? Okay. Because it was done individually. Okay. So over a 2 or 3 day period, and there was some tense conversations, okay, because they were early. It was early in the process, and the team were still feeling themselves out, and that level of trust was down here, and as they went through the process of integrating that risk plan, the level of trust started to go up, and the amount of funding required to address each of those contingency lines or line items started to go down as each organization would provide input into how we were going to actually mitigate that risk if it arose, and the dollar value associated with that particular risk was, like Mike said, it was substantially less. Okay? So, compared to traditional means and ways where you're protecting yourself versus working together as one collective team, there's a huge difference. And one of the other big benefits that came out of that exercise was the amount of warranty warranty funding that we asked the proponents during the RFP phase to identify the costs that they were carrying for warranty items. Once we came through the integrated risk exercise, that warranty costs associated with the Auto Holden project dropped by a third. I can't remember the value, but I do remember the percentage, and it was a third. So that was a big win for OPG, and basically right out of the gate. That they eliminated, you know, 1/3 of the costs associated with warranty that they didn't have to carry in their business case.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, Mike?
No, I think you said it well. The other exercise, as we went through the line-by-line review of the individual estimates and put them together in an integrated estimate, a better understanding of contingency and overlapping contingency happened. And then as they built up the level 3 schedule coming out of validation, that helped them again understand contingency. And so from the beginning of validation, it was a 21% drop down to 11% is what they signed up for coming out of validation. And then at the end of pre-construction, again, after all the detailed engineering was done, 100%, all the IFC drawings were done, and then they did that final integrated EMP estimate, contingency dropped from 11% down to 9%.
Good. So there's a question for Paul and Jay. What actions did Shell take to incentivize collaboration versus beat the hell out of EPCs?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll take a stab at the first part of that. I'm not sure what part of the world that came from, but I would suspect maybe it's North America. I'm not sure.
It's in quotes.
Yeah, it's somebody must have had trouble before, but I think historically, when you look at you know, Shell and the way that we behave with our EPCs, I think we've shown to be more than fair. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of studies and recent studies that came out. I recall when I was teaching in the Shell Project Academy about Exxon being the tough guys, right? So a little harder on contracts than Shell in the industry, but I'm not going to put it over onto them. And I think, you know, again, this is many lines of business. We have upstream, downstream, we have integrated gas, we have conventional oil and gas, etc. So I'm not sure where the experience comes from, but all of the businesses I've worked in, I've always had a really collaborative contracting sessions, and I haven't had any big issues. I've had to go start over on some of them midway through execution, which I think most of us have. But Paul, you got anything to add to that?
No, yeah, I can understand the comment. I think there's a range of you know, say history and how, you know, not just us but many owners have behaved. You know, there can be a tendency to go to the backstop of a legal or you know, someone mentioned earlier, you know, the adversarial nature and the wasted energy on claims. And you know, I've been lucky enough in my career to not have got too much into that. I think maybe in one project I had some issues, and you know, I'm really trying, certainly for my own personal advocacy. But I do think, and Jamie, I think will support me in that there is strong support at the top to really drive relationships and collaboration. I mean, my team specifically is tasked with managing the relationships with all of the major EPC companies, and that includes, you know, CEO level conversations and driving a very, what we call a transparent but edgy conversation where we push each other to give feedback when we're not so happy, when things don't go so well, to also then drive you know, how things can go really well. And it just coincidentally, as I've been in the call today, You know, I had a message through from a major supplier who was able to juggle some of their manufacturing schedule in order to you know, help you know, Shell and one of its joint ventures to meet its requirements, and that was built out of a very strong collaborative relationship. But the same company 2-3 months ago we had a big issue with, and we had a frank conversation. We got everyone around the table and we worked it out. But I think if you've got that trust and that respect, then you can have tough conversations. You can learn from it and move on, and it also builds a platform to actually have that proactive engagement up front. So, you know, it's a big complex world out there. There are many different characters in it, but certainly we were trying to cultivate that relationship where we kind of inquire, test understanding, and move to solutions rather than throw rocks at each other. But I'm sure that there'll be the odd part of Shell where you know, there are still challenges in a more adversarial aspect, and you know, we all continue to try to improve on that as we go through.
Thank you. John, this is a question for you. AWP requires staggered handoff from EP to C. To avoid risk of claims, traditional contracts require a float, late curve plan. Which methods are provided with CWA? I think your mic's off again.
Yeah, this is a question for the project delivery stakeholders about how do you want to plan and execute your work. The collaborative working agreement provides the opportunity for flexibility to decide we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way. This is about, it's a fundamental decision for the project delivery stakeholders to make. This project, this is what suits us on this project and is going to help us deliver on time, budget, and the rest of it. The issue of claims in the collaborative working agreement doesn't actually exist, because the project delivery stakeholders are required to find solutions to challenges, and the whole thing is about looking forward, anticipating, and trying to avoid. Somebody said today, I think it was, we spend a lot of time looking back in this industry. You know, making management decisions on the basis of information that's 2 months out of date. You can't do that. You've got to be looking forward. Therefore, you need a system, you need a set of processes to enable you to do that, and gear your organization to what you want to achieve. So the CWA doesn't stipulate one thing or the other. Decide as project delivery stakeholders is the answer.
Okay. Are collaborative contracts conducive in an environment where capital projects are routinely stopped and restarted due to funding constraints?
I can comment on this. I would say that the collaborative approach and the relationship, the focus on the relationship as opposed to the contract, I think is a good counter to any kind of disruption. So if you have a contract, typically, you know, the four corners of the document, when you write it, you try to predict all the things that are going to happen, and you try to account for those in the contract. And sometimes you do it specifically, sometimes you do it generally. But the fact of the matter is one cannot predict the future. And so there's always things that happen that lay outside of what the contract can deal with. And that's where you need the relationship. So the more collaborative the contracting activity is and the stronger the relationship that is built through that effort, the more the arrangement can take the hits from the external environment, like things like money running out and then coming back and then running out and coming back, and this sort of constant stopping and starting thing, which would really try everybody's patience and potentially cause them to want to quit or terminate an existing agreement because the commercial objectives in the first instance that form the basis of it no longer exist and it can't flex. So I think eminently yes is the answer to this question for that bunch of reasons.
Okay. could you please name the main criteria for selecting the GC and OEM for an I2PD project?
So it was either Allison or Mike spoke briefly about the scorecard, and the scorecard for the selection of the parties is turned upside down. Okay, the pricing is weighted down at the bottom versus normally in my old industry where I came from, pricing was always weighted at the top. The selection of the proponents based on their culture, based on their fit. We all know that they're technically sound. You wouldn't invite them to the table if you weren't sure if they were technically sound. Perhaps some historical, perhaps some social aspects. You might want to integrate into the scorecard. But the benefit here is the opportunity to select your team and assemble your team versus taking lowest price or lowest proposal. Okay? You want to put together your team that and I mentioned it before, that are going to play well, and not just the organizations, but your individual team members as well. There is a mechanism within the agreement to add or remove proponents, but one of the lessons that was shared with us, and I think Mike alluded to it as well. If you're going to make a change, make it quick, and don't procrastinate on the decision, whether it's a team member or whether it's an organization. So to wrap things up, the scorecarding for this selection is completely upside down than what you would normally utilize in a traditional model.
Yeah, there were over 40 criteria. I think 42 was the number, if I recall correctly. 5 main categories. The corporate culture with respect to collaboration and integration and experience with the various principles, methods, or actually with collaborating contracts. We had criteria on the team that they were presenting, the technical ability. Because it's part of a Crown Corporation, we had a category on social responsibility, and then finally a category on pricing. Those are the 5 broad categories.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. I'd like to go to our quick surveys of the 100 or so who have stuck with us. We're going to ask 2 questions. One is, we'd like your input in terms of using Slido to describe what are the nuggets that you've seen, and then we'll compile that and put that up. And then there'll be 2 other questions regarding what your perspective was of the overall the program content, and then secondly, what was your perspective in terms of the technical background, the flow of the program. So we kind of divided it those 2 ways. That helps all of us to make improvements in future such sessions. And if you'll go to the next, there we go. And these last 2 questions are confidential. We're not going to put up the results. But anybody who wants to see how we did, we'd be happy to generally share them. And if you want to go to the upcoming events.
Okay, one moment.
Yep. There are 2 upcoming events that are immediate. One is the CII annual conference with Kurt, August 2nd through 4th. You can see how you can go to register for that. I was just looking at the numbers, and we've got more people's companies being able to say, we're going to let you travel, which is good news. And of course, we'll be following the appropriate CDC guidance in the work that we do there. The other is going to be AWP for the AWP conference in Houston, October 28th and 29th. And you'll be seeing some more information on that. This is a number of year project, always a good turnout. And by October, we hope to see more people be able to travel. And then lastly, we've got a series of projects that we're calling pending. We're still doing some internal reviews on them. These were listed yesterday too. We're looking into AWP for the power and utility sector. That might be in September. AWP Lean and Stronger Together also in late September. This is out of our AWP Lean joint work group, which was established this year. AWP for the mining sector is something we'd be looking into for the late fall or November, ahead of Thanksgiving. And then lastly, in December, we've got one more, AWP for infrastructure sector, a discussion with the power utility and infrastructure sector about the possible need for this. Certainly, we've been able to hear and see it. I would like to, while we're getting some totals on the sheet, again, thank all of our speakers and our thought leaders and Group ASI for all of their technical support. I also want to thank our sponsors for their putting in their time and their efforts and their funding to help us put this program together. We hope that you had some time to visit their virtual booths over the course of the program. And I believe people will still be able to visit some of this stuff because we'll be keeping the conference lines open. Am I correct, Stephen?
Yes, absolutely. At least 6 months, you'll be able to continue to access the platform and take in all of the content that's available there. And we'll be adding things as it becomes available.
And we'll be working both in terms of posting all of the presentations, the videos in this conference in that space, as well as ultimately up on the CII website. We have some conversations going on in terms of trying to expedite that, certainly get it done as quickly as possible. And here's the results of day 2. So you want to talk about, Stephen, how this all came together?
Absolutely. So we asked you to tell us in 1 or 2 words, or in a short phrase, what your highlights from today's program specifically were. We did a similar exercise, you may recall, from yesterday, and what you see on screen now are the top highlights that you have all identified from your experience today. The biggest words are the ones that others have voted on or that were duplicated by others, and so you can see kind of what everyone's thinking.
Very good. There's some overlap, obviously, from both yesterday's and today's, but clearly today's was focused on the newer collaborative contracting types.
So, hi there.
Yeah,
this is Lloyd Rankin from Group ASI, and I've been lurking in the background for the last 2 days. I just wanted to thank all of the CII leadership team and the subject matter experts. They put in a lot of time and effort to give us a great 2 days of content, and just want to thank everybody for your hard work, and it definitely came across in what we saw. So thank you all.
well, and thank you again, Lloyd. Any final thoughts or comments from any of our thoughts leaders?
It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you all. Stay posted. We're going to be taking a look internally inside CII and what do we gather out of this that may shape something that we want to do either through a CBA or sector. So this isn't just something to be archived. We see it as a step forward. So thank you all again for your time.
Thanks, Bob. Great job. Thanks, everybody. It was wonderful being part of this group.
Take care.
All the best. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.